It's Lit Book Reviews. This is the podcast where we discuss all things books. I am Absolute Batman, and with me is Batman Beyond.
Mhm.
And we're here to do another one. Today we're going to discuss Kurt Vonnegut Jr. and a few of his works. You may have heard of him. You probably have heard of him. He was born in 1922, lived a very long time, died in 2007, but he's written a lot of books. Most famously, he's known for Slaughterhouse Five. He also has Cat's Cradle, Breakfast of Champions, Sirens of Titan, Mother Night, and several other really popular works. Slaughterhouse Five, for instance, his most popular, has got 1.4 million ratings on Goodreads, published in 1969, 4.1 out of 5-star overall rating. So that's big numbers. He's a very well-known author. He's well
Did you read
known
that in high
for.
school?
I did not know. I read Slaughterhouse
I
Five
didn't.
last year for the first time. Yeah.
I shouldn't know though, because I feel like that's one of those books I've seen. I didn't read it, but I feel like a lot of people may have been forced to read that in high school. I feel like
Yeah,
that
and then
was
I
in English
think
big.
well it's also it's a book that's been banned. I don't know if that's like in our
Uh,
country, other places in the world, but it's one of those books that's like on
like
banned book
1984.
list. Yeah, so yeah, we're gonna kind of just discuss what we both thought of the Vonnegut works we've read and his writing and things like that. And then at the end, if you haven't read it, if you have read these works that we're going to discuss, we'll talk about kind of spoilery stuff from the stories themselves. But essentially, what we have going on here is last year, a friend of mine recommended that I read Slaughterhouse Five, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. And Slaughterhouse Five, if you haven't read it, the little blurb to describe this book is Slaughterhouse Five is an American classic. It is one of the world's great anti-war books. Centers on the infamous World War II firebombing of Dresden. The novel is the result of what Kurt Vonnegut described as a 23-year struggle to write a book about what he had witnessed as an American prisoner of war. It combines historical fiction, science fiction, autobiography, and satire in account of the life of Billy Pilgrim, a barber's son turned draftee turned optometrist turned alien abductee. As Vonnegut had, Billy experiences the destruction of Dresden as a POW. Unlike Vonnegut, he experiences time travel or coming quote unquote unstuck in time. And I'm not going to read the rest of the description, but that essentially explains it. So that's one of the things that actually drew me to this initially was my friend told me to read this and explained that Vonnegut was a POW in World War II and he was in Dresden during those fire bombings. That's well known as one of the greatest atrocities in the history of war. And this guy was there. So that drew me to him. And it's a great book. It is definitely an anti war book. It's not really a surprise that someone who experienced that would end up writing anti war work, but it's not it's not a cheap anti-war book. It's earned and
Yeah.
it's explained and backed up. But then it's also like very funny and very I mean it's wild. So there's Billy Pilgrim who essentially he's going from being stuck and unstuck in time and he just randomly time travels like outside of his control. So he'll just be like in a World War II moment and then he'll time travel. And then there's aliens and stuff like that. But he's the character of the book, but Vonnegut like it describes it as partially autobiographical. There will just be a random scene where Billy Pilgrim, the main character, is like running around, in training or at war or whatever, and he walks by a soldier, and it's like the soldier to my right was like crunched over, throwing up. And all throughout the book, it's stuff like that. And then Kurt Vonnegut puts in parentheses, "I was the soldier hurled over, throwing up." So like the way he
Mm.
describes his experience in World War II and at Dresden is just as like an aside to what the character of the book is experiencing, and then he'll just put in parentheses like that was me. So that's really interesting. But overall, I won't go into spoilers. And you have not read this one, so there's not a whole lot I can say other than I'm not surprised that this is a famous classic work. The writing, and we'll talk more about this, is just it's so different. It's like very subtle, but also not at all. Like in other ways, like it's very like in your face about some things, but then the wit and some of the inferences are very subtle and it's just one of those books that makes me laugh. Like I feel like the humor is really elite. Like sometimes it's just so quick, you can almost miss it, and it makes me laugh pretty good. Which I feel like I don't laugh a lot at a lot of books. I don't know about you, but not a lot of books actually make me like laugh out loud. Um, so yeah, this was a great book. I actually gave it 4 stars. I see now because I said 5 stars and I was like, did I give it 5 stars? I gave it 4 stars. So not my favorite of his, but it was really good and it made me want to read more. Um, and so that's that one. So Slaughterhouse Five, great book. We may talk more spoilers later, but that's what initially got me into it. And then just like a week or two ago, I decided to read Sirens of Titan, and I convinced young Andrew to read it as
Mm.
well. So I read this one. I read it in like a day and a half. I burned through it. It's not a very long book, and you listened to it in like a day, correct?
Yeah, I
So you
did.
got it all at once. So we both got all of this all at once, which I think is good for all the works that I've read by Vonnegut. But this is the first and only Vonnegut work you have read. So before I say, all I'll say about this one is this is my favorite of Vonnegut's works, The Sirens of Titan, the one we're talking about now. What did you think of this book? What did you rate it, and what are your thoughts?
I think I
Non-spoiler.
rated it 3. Did I rate it 3? Let me
Yeah, you
look.
rated it 3.
I think
You
I did
did.
rate it 3.
I
I
felt like
mean, it
your
was
review was
exactly what I
solid.
thought it was. I mean, yeah, this is just not for me. It's not 3 because I
Yeah,
don't think it's a good book. Like, I don't agree with Jake where he didn't really seem to think it was good in general, like literature,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
I didn't agree with that take. I just don't. I think it's definitely it's the same reason why A Tale of Two Cities doesn't hit for me. It's like I'm not from that time period. Like I bet if what was it in 62? Is that when this book came out?
This one came out in
59?
'59. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if I was 20 in
yeah,
1959, yeah, this book would probably be awesome. But like because unfortunately I've read Red Rising, it's like or Dune. Like I would say Dune is more relatable to this than anything, which it's not at all. And like I was telling you, I need to remember the actual name of it. Is it called The Space Odyssey by C.S. Lewis? You know what I'm
that's
talking
the name of
about?
the trilogy. No, is that the name of the trilogy? This it's just called the Space Trilogy. It's
Space
Out of the
Trilogy.
Silent Planet, and then that P word, and
So
then
I've read the first two of those, and I audible those as well. I believe a while back, when I first was getting back into reading, and it reminds me of that. Obviously, C.S. Lewis's message is way different. It's hard push for Christianity, but it felt like that. It felt like, oh, this is someone who doesn't care about the characters. He cares about saying a message, which
yeah,
I think that's what he was trying to do. So I'm not like mad. Like that's I guess where I differ maybe from Jake or maybe other people if you don't specifically like that. But I had tried to read Slaughterhouse Five, and I kind of got that vibe immediately as well. And I just wasn't in a spot where
it's
I
just not
wanted
for
to
you,
do
huh?
that. Well, I think you have to kind of be in a mindset like ready
That's true.
to because it's not really about the story. Like the story is like because just random stuff keeps happening where it's like there's no foreshadowing in this book. Like it's not one of those books where it's like a
Yeah,
you know it's not that it's not plot driven, I guess, but it's all about theme. Whereas most of the books we read now are not about theme. Like theme is like if you're ranking what the book is about, theme is like very low. You
yeah.
know, it's like maybe world building, characters, plot, like those things are above theme. Whereas theme was number one. So that's just I don't think my thing, but I didn't think it was a bad book, and it was very interesting. Like I mean, I didn't feel like stopping at all and like listening to something else. I
Right.
did want to know what happens, but it does feel like that old style of writing where it's like, all right, anything could happen next, and it doesn't really matter. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Yeah,
which is
that's true.
fun, I guess, in a way. Like there's
It's
kind of a
different. It
fun.
feels like it's like, there's, like, no
I mean,
stress. Like, there's no
no,
stress because I don't care if one of these characters dies. Like, I
no.
don't.
Well, and
Like
it's like he's just gonna make up words about Kronos and Classic Infundibula. It's like, all right, it's almost makes it to where it's not serious, but then the
yeah.
theme is serious. So it's like a very, which I think he's doing that on purpose,
Well, it
obviously.
kinda
But
is, but it's also, like so the theme of this one so, like, if the Slaughterhouse Five is an anti-war book, this Sirens of Titan and Cat's Cradle, really, that is the book I read after this, are really just about like life being meaningless, essentially.
Yes.
Which is the most like negative way to, I guess, pitch it, but the way it could also be said is that
It's like
making
free
like
will
constantly
versus
searching. Yeah, there's free will. Just like that's kind of a big theme, but like it's essentially like if you're making life about there being some grand purpose, you're wasting your time and energy when you could just be, which really plays off something else I'm reading right now, which we can talk about in a bit. But that's kind of that's the message of this of Sirens of Titan is that like there's no point to any of this. So you should just do what you want to do to like have a good time. It's kind of like The Stranger, Albert Camus or however you say his name, the French author, that short book I read into last year. Except I don't think he delivered it well at all. But yeah,
yeah.
it's very in your face, which is a thing that Jake didn't like very much, which I can get that. Like if you don't
Yeah.
want your themes to be delivered to you very on the nose on a silver platter, you might not like what Vonnegut's doing. But to me, it's funny enough and like whimsical to a point. And I think that's why like even saying that the theme is serious, I think Vonnegut would say it's not. He would say like nothing's that serious. You know what I mean? That's what it
Yeah.
almost feels like. So I do agree with you though. You have to go into it with a certain mindset, but I mean my version of Sirens of Titan was like 190 pages. If this was a 600-page book, I would not have given Sirens of Titan a 5 stars
Yeah.
like I did. It was literally, I think it was Cat's Cradle I read in one day. This one I read in a day and a half. So I definitely couldn't have spent a week in the Vonnegut realm, but for like
If someone
short
wrote this today, though, I don't think it would be good. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, did he even try? Like, it makes that's one of those things. It just feels like the effort level isn't that high. I mean, I'll give examples later, but there's just certain points in the book where it's like, I mean, do you even care about this book? Like, I mean, it's just like you said. I guess it's like a whimsical feeling, but it's also
yeah.
like, in some lights, it's like, is this whimsical or is this just like, I don't, or do you just not care? I don't know. It's just, I just wonder if in today's time, does it hold up if someone wrote this book in 2025? Like, is is it going to be
Well, probably
popular?
not because more so that like I think just the culture is different. Like you said, like themes being
Yeah.
the main thing are not, popular right now. But I think as far as like you saying it seems like he might not even care. I think that's I think that's the theme bleeding through everything that makes it feel that way. Because I think it can feel that way, but I think it's because he's pitching a story where everything ends up being pretty inconsequential. And we'll talk spoilers later, but that's definitely the point. And I can definitely see what you mean where it feels that way. But I think that's a direct byproduct of what he's trying to kind of say with the book,
Yeah.
which I don't like this book because I agree with him. I do not think life is
Yeah.
meaningless, and I don't think people should become obsessed with trying to find some grand purpose, but I don't think pursuing something because it's a great purpose is wrong. So I don't agree with the message of this book. I didn't agree with the message of The Stranger. But again, I gave this one 5 stars cuz dude, it was just it was ridiculous to me. It made me laugh. Like I was like, "What is happening?" And I don't know, I guess I was in the right mood for it. Like I was just
Yeah.
feeling kinda like,
The
I don't
very
know,
ending
laughy
made me
about it.
laugh, but only in a way of like, I don't know. I see what you're saying on like, that's the whimsical thing is, I guess, what he's trying to do. So that's why it seems like he's not putting effort, but it's also like, or he just didn't put effort. You know what I mean? It's like the two sides to that sword are like, oh, I'm going to overthink and think he's just that good. Or it's just like, I don't know. Like that was where it was tough for me. And that's where
I
like,
think
it was
yeah.
like, all right, is he that good? Or is this just, did this story just hit in a time when, like back then, it was like, oh
Well,
my
that's
god,
probably
this guy
true
is so
to a yeah.
counterculture.
That's probably true to a major degree. I think he just found his bag in this style that worked at that time in the late 50s, early 60s or whatever, and so he just delivered a lot of his stuff in that way. I mean, I've only read 3 of his books, and he has, like, a
Yeah,
ton of books, but the
they
ones
all
that
read the
I've
same
read
though.
I think Slaughterhouse 5 stands definitely reads different than Sirens of Titan, but I think Sirens of Titan and Cat's Cradle read very similarly. Like it's
Yeah.
it's the same exact message in my opinion. I'm sure if I did rereads, I'd find more differences. I've only read these books once, and I'm sure Vonnegut scholars would gasp at a comment like that. But first time reading through, not being the smartest person in the world, it feels like the exact same message, which it is a different story, but it is kind of like, all right, you know.
So
And it
there's
looks
some
like so
character crossovers, like the aliens are the same.
no, but in spoilers we'll talk about that because there is
Okay.
something really interesting that's just funny about all that. But anyway, um so I guess that just brings me to Cat's Cradle. Like I kind of just said, it's a shorter and definitely a way different story, but it's essentially the same message. I think, in my opinion. I mean, you haven't read it, so we really can't go back and forth about it, but it's pretty much about things being largely meaningless and, you know, the illusion of control, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what a lot of that messaging is about, which again, like you said, for the time, I feel like was probably a popular kind of message. But something really interesting just to bring up because we're not gonna end up doing a video about this most likely, but I just finished a book called The Swerve, which uh, won the Pulitzer Prize in 2012, and it's about this dude in the late Middle Ages who finds 1,000-year-old poem from by Lucretius, and the poem's called "On the Nature of Things," and it's essentially an atheist manifesto that's about like the fact that people shouldn't waste their time on anything other than trying to be happy and having pleasure, and that there's nothing after life. It's an atheist manifesto,
Yeah.
through and through. And it's just I don't know if Vonnegut's an atheist, and I'm not making a point about atheism or anything else, but it's just a very interesting parallel that I read that book about that, and that's very big, like in the Renaissance and Enlightenment era, and that's kind of what people like Albert Camus and it seems like Vonnegut talk about. Not necessarily the atheism, like God part, but just this idea that there's nothing other than this life and you trying to make something else about it is pointless, like you're wasting your time. So it's just interesting
Yeah.
how that thought resonates so strongly with people, like kind of all throughout history, depending on the context. But just a side note, I feel like I would recommend Vonnegut to most people. I mean,
Yeah.
would you ever recommend this to somebody?
I would never say don't. I mean, it's such an easy, especially for Audible. Unfortunately, it's not like free if you have Audible. Like I had to actually spend a credit. If this was free, like a part of if you have Audible, you know how like there's like a library that you can like listen to unlimited things. I mean, then definitely for sure because it's so unique and so different. It'd be a great palate cleanser, and I mean, you could knock it out in a road trip and you're not going to be bored. Like you may not rate it 5 stars, but it's not going to be. You're
Yeah,
going to want to listen to it, and you're going to want to finish it for sure. And it'll be unique. And honestly, I mean, it made me think. There were a bunch of times where I think the whole purpose of this book is to kind of make you think about stuff, but in a more lighthearted way. And it definitely there were moments where I was like, I mean, that's even if, like you said, I don't fully agree with the overall message. I mean, there were definitely some truth, like nuggets that I
yeah,
picked up. Something that's
yeah.
funny that you'll think this is funny. This is again a shout out to our good friend Jake.
Hmm.
So I typed in Chat GPT, why is Kurt Vonnegut such a prolific, like known as such a prolific author? And so it gives us all these things. Well, the last sentence it says, you're gonna love this, man. He says he showed that literature could be profound without being pretentious, and that's why people still love him today. That's what ChatGPT says.
Dude, I gotta
Uh,
side with ChatGTP on this one, honestly.
I agree. I honestly agree. I thought, yeah, again, was this my favorite book of all time? No, but I mean, I think it does what he wanted it to do, and I feel like
Yeah,
that's where it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, I see why people would rate it 5 stars. I wouldn't because it's not what I like, but I would admit, like,
yeah,
it's not like how you see other books, you're like, how did someone like rate that 5?
yeah,
But this is, I wouldn't be shocked if someone did because I mean, I mean, I could see it being for a specific crowd.
Right.
Like, I get it, and it's not
Yeah.
like me saying that for like, oh, I see why. I don't know, some romantasy book that it's like, is that even literature? Like, this is real literature. Like, I do, I'm not saying,
Not the
I'm
same
not trying to
thing.
compare it. Yeah, that's not the same thing. So, just because, I mean, it does make you think, and I mean, there were definitely satirical moments, but we'll talk about it more in spoilers, where it's just like, bro, come on.
Come on, bro. Yeah, so I would agree. I'd recommend this to people, and I would say, look, it's short, it's fun, and if you don't like it, it's not going to take you that much time. So
The
I think
audible
they're fun.
narrator
I'll
is
probably
pretty good
read
too.
more. Huh?
The audible narrator was pretty good too. Like, if
Oh,
someone is
nice.
looking for a quick audible, this would be a good
Well, there
one.
you go. So either read it or listen to it. We do recommend Vonnegut. We're going to talk a little bit more, kind of spoilers of things that actually happened in the books. So if you've not read them and you don't want to know what happens, check out. Um, I can't think of anything from Slaughterhouse Five right off the top, but Sirens of Titan. I mean, what's like what I mean, are you talking about the message from Tralfamador?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to backtrack on, I liked the first part more. Once, I mean, at first it's like, oh, who is Unk? But I mean, I feel like it was pretty obvious who Unk was. But I
Yeah.
liked the Malachi Constant arc from the beginning before he got to Mars more than I liked it once he was on Mars and like
Mm, I think I did
trying
too,
to find
actually.
his son or whatever. Like, I
Yeah.
that was kind of where I mean, I saw what he was doing, so it's like, okay, but I didn't find that nearly as creative as I think, but I think maybe back then it would have been very creative, maybe like early sci-fi days. But I
Yeah.
don't know. It's like, bro, once you read certain things, it's like, bro, an antenna in the brain's not enough for me to be fully
Yeah.
stimulated with a sci-fi army deal. And it's also,
Yeah.
again, I know he's doing this on purpose, but like, basically everybody having the same personality is brutal for me. Like, they're
Yeah.
all the same, which
Yeah.
again, I'm sure is he's doing that on purpose.
Well, that
But
yeah, he's making a commentary on like how in society often we're all just like robots going through the motions and like doing the same thing. Like the whole commentary on, the having a wife and two kids and a white picket fence, that like kind of thing.
yeah,
Um, which again,
I,
like I don't think is bad, which that's the thing about Vonnegut that I can see people not liking is that it feels like he's not just saying, "Oh, you don't have to do that." It sometimes feels like he's saying doing that and wanting that is wrong. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, I agree. The Malachi Constant guy was interesting, I thought, um, before Mars, and then a little bit after Mars, like once he comes back. But um, I don't know. There were just him being a billionaire and that whole thing, and him trying to run away. I thought was the most
Yeah.
interesting part. And then once his like memory gets wiped, it's just yeah, it's just
Well,
all
it
right. We
takes
already
away
know
that
what's gonna
character
happen.
development. When a character's memory gets wiped, it's like, okay, like that
Yeah,
character development matters to me, but it doesn't matter to this character because he can't remember it. So it's kind of tough.
yeah. When like
Um,
the things that kept taking me out of it, which I think again are intentional, but I don't think it's funny. So it's tough. Like continually saying Chronos in classic infundibulum, like that's not my kind of humor. Like there were
yeah,
other parts that I thought were funny, but that and like German bat ball and like the fascination with that, that's like it's like a Dr.
yeah,
Seuss funny to me, where it's like
mm,
I don't I just it didn't hit for me. I don't know if
yeah.
it was the mood
I
I
didn't
was
think
in or
either one of
what.
those two things were
Yeah.
particularly funny either.
But they were repetitive on purpose, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we get it, Kurt. Jesus. And especially with the audible, the way the guy said it was so goofy, like all those names. So it was like, bro. But again, I understand he's doing it on purpose. So it's like I can't even. It does serve a purpose, I guess. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm not knocking it fully. It's more just I was hoping that it serve a purpose and be funny, and it didn't.
Yeah.
Those two parts, at least, were not funny to me. I mean, but yeah, to skip to the very end, that was definitely the most. I mean, I'll forget a lot of things about this book, but I mean, I can't say I didn't see it coming, dude. Him opening up the letter, and it's just not only is it nothing. I mean, it's just a period, and I know the period just means like What's up?
greetings.
Yeah.
It's literally just a note that says greetings.
Yeah, and that's
And he's been spending like hundreds of thousands of years or whatever, tens of
yeah,
thousands stuck on a planet somewhere. What was it? Venus? I can't
Titan
remember what planet.
or
Titan. Oh yeah, duh.
Saturn, the moon, Saturn's moon.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
and yeah, that was funny. I did you so the as far as sci-fi, dude, I feel like the high sci-fi moment of this book though was when Ankh and Boaz are in that like they go way down into the depths of that moon or whatever. That was cool alone, just explaining like how it kept doing that because it was meant to go to the lowest level and it couldn't go up because there was nothing on top. But then the description of the little luminescent things that lived down
yeah,
there,
it like
bro,
live
I
off
love
kinetic
that.
energy or whatever.
Dude, I thought that was so like in my head, dude, that looked so cool when he described that. Did you not
I
feel
think
that way?
I think at that point I was on like I mean I'm not gonna lie. I mean I told you I literally got up to 2.25 speed, which is honestly very disrespectful. And I'm sorry,
That is
Kurt,
so
but I
dude, that is
did.
so disrespectful.
But
Like
on Audible, I know you don't really listen to Audible ever, but so on Audible, the kind of cancer thing about it is it'll tell you how much total time you have left in the book. And that is like based off of the speed you're going at. So if you increase the speed, you can see it like drop exponentially. And, I was driving to Nashville and I only had like an hour and a half left. So like the last hour and a half, like I didn't want to, it was going to be where I had like 30 minutes left. I'm like, I want to finish it because I don't want to get taken out of it and it'll be meaning even less, then. So it's like, all right, what speed can I be at and finish? And it was 2.25. So, which I will say, I already listen on 1.7. That's like normal for me
yeah,
is
the
1.7 to
2.25, bro,
1.8.
man, that's a big bump.
2.25 is the fastest I've ever. Yeah.
I mean, dude,
I
did
will
you even
say it was,
understand what was happening?
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, at least I think so. I will
Well,
say
that's
at the
good,
very
as long
end,
as you did.
another moment that was just like, this is dumb. And like, I already get the full message. Chrono living with the
Oh, yeah, the birds.
birds or whatever. I was like, what
Dude,
are we doing, man?
dude,
Send him back. Give him
it
a
was
life.
literally just so goofy, bro. That
It's
shit made
like,
me laugh, bro.
why? Why, man?
Oh,
They
dude, it
made
was
him
just
such a
so
weird
wacky.
character. He made him so
Yeah,
weird. Which I mean, I didn't mind him being just kind of a total like dick the whole time, but then him
yeah.
just going to the birds, I don't know, man. That was tough.
That's
That
for
was
the
tough to
birds,
see.
man. Yeah, that was funny. What'd you think about like I really liked the God, now I can't remember his name. The not the main character, not Malachi Constant. The dude who time travels. What's it? Roomford.
Yeah,
What's his first name?
he was the one who. Oh,
See ya.
I'm dead. Um, he he was the one who like I got most of the comedic relief from.
Yeah, I would agree with that for
So
sure.
he I thought was funny, and the guy's voice was great for him. He ends up playing less and less of a role as it goes on, though. So well, and then at the end he kind of comes back a little bit, but um,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, he was probably my favorite character, honestly, when I think about it.
Yeah, he's the most interesting. I think the character of his wife, which now I can't remember her name either. Oh,
Beatrice.
Beatrice. I feel like she was like the tragic character, dude. Her life, I feel like was just so sad. Like all
Well, she was the one
throughout.
who truly had the. I mean, it's seemingly the least control of her life.
Yeah, that's like what her character. That's like I feel like the theme of her character is his example of the fact that we have no control over anything, because you realize towards the end, like it feels like uh Rumford has like so much control, almost like he's dictating things that are going on. And you get the hint that that's not the case throughout the book, but at the end especially, it's like he has no control over anything either. Like he's been trying to like crack the code and figure stuff out, but you find out that at the end he just really wants to know what this dude's message is. And it ends up, I mean, he never finds out. He dies before he finds out, but it ends up being greetings, and it's just like, bro, even he was fooled by thinking there was a purpose to things. But so that
He
reminds me.
won by
Okay,
the time.
so Trafalmador and Trafalmadorians are a theme, not in all the books, but they are in some of them. And I think I can't. Cat's
Which they're
Cradle was.
robots. They're not even like. I
Yeah,
guess
they're
they're
just like so
aliens still,
advanced that
but
they're essentially like alien robots. Yeah, whatever they are. And apparently, like if you read into it, like they're not super consistent throughout his books. It's not supposed to be like some Cosmere thing. He just uses that same term for this
it's
far off
like, bro, pick
civilization.
any other name.
Trafalmador. But dude, did it not give you kind of like three body vibes, three body problem? Just the concept of the Trafalmadorians like controlling things from like, dude, what he
At
was
the very end.
insinuating is that like the Great Wall of China and all these other things,
Yeah.
they orchestrated just to send messages to space travelers, to their own like space
To
travelers.
that guy. Yeah. Hey, someone's coming.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's just so funny
I
because
mean,
again, he's just saying that nothing means anything. That all these human accomplishments were just some alien civilization trying to let this stranded dude know that they were sending him supplies or whatever. You know?
yeah. It is just a cruel ploy of like, hey, let's get all these meaningless characters to this one point, just so I can really tell you the only thing I really want to tell you, which is that this alien race has just made life meaningless for everybody else. It's like he could have told us that in 20 pages, but instead,
But it doesn't.
it's
You don't feel anything like similar to what the characters feel unless you go through that journey. You know?
I guess. I mean, I guess, but I mean,
uh,
I like the character. One of the other characters that I liked a lot too. I mean, it was more the watching his business go down in flames, Malachi Constant, and then learning the backstory of his dad and the
mm,
whole thing with the
yeah,
Bible. Like that was the most interesting part to me. That, and then the guy
yeah,
who finds him, who ends up being the president. I don't know his name, and it's
yeah. I
not on
forget his
my
name.
notes. But anyway, um, he he kind of plays a cool role in breaking it down. I mean, mainly because he's the one who tells Malachi about his dad, or well, does he tell him, or he tells him to go across the street and maybe he reads a note? I can't remember. Either way, though, that was the favorite part for me. So
Yeah,
I was kind of locked in there, and then after that, I was just kind of riding that from then on because it's like, all right, I've gotten this far, I might as well finish for sure. And it was, not boring because I mean, random stuff keeps happening, but
yeah,
the Mars part the initial part of it lasted a little long for me, and then the whole like
yeah,
part where he kills his buddy like in the beginning, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it was just so, I don't know, like I wish there would have been a couple more like little twists, like how, like, I mean, I feel like you could really, if you think about it, you could see the greetings coming, like as far as it just
yeah,
saying greetings. But I
yeah.
wish there was a couple more of those where it's like, yeah, I don't know, hide it a little bit more. Like I know that's not the point of this story, but it being so obvious, I don't know. And I didn't Boaz felt racist to me for some reason.
I
Boaz felt
mean,
like a character
probably.
that
I mean, he
wouldn't
felt
hold
very
up.
much like a Nazi or something. Like
Yeah.
just his
He
actions
felt,
and his attitude.
yeah.
But then he has a little. I mean, he has that weird arc where he wants to stay with the luminescent, cave
Yeah.
things that like
They need him,
cover
dude.
the radio. Yeah, they need him to give him.
Or he feels
And
like
that
they
was
need
kind
him.
of like,
I forgot about that. I didn't see that coming at all.
yeah. And his whole
Him
thing
of
where
all
he's like,
people.
if I stay here, like I won't hurt anybody. Like there are things here that like me, you know. And so that felt like I don't really know what he was trying to say with that, but he took this character with a terrible personality that does terrible things, and then makes him have this arc where he realizes that he should just stay in a cave the rest of his life so it doesn't harm anybody. I don't really know what he's trying to say with that, but it was an interesting arc for old Boaz.
Yeah. I mean, is Kurt a fun guy to hang around, you think? Back in the
I mean,
day?
he's dead, so probably not, but I feel like he would be funny. I feel like he'd be really crass, you know? And like if you don't know him, he might come off as like a douchebag. But I feel like once you got
Yeah.
to know him, you would like him.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he really would not understand just sticking it, or like just, I was gonna say sticking to the man, but it's like the opposite of that. He just like working a 9 to 5 would just be like, why? What's the point?
Why are you doing that?
And it's like, dude, I already feel like that, Kurt. I don't know if I need you in my life. Like, why am I working?
Yeah, good question, Kurt. I hope somebody has an answer for me at some point.
Yeah,
Which
Kurt, thanks for
is
making me feel
interesting to
worse
go
about it
back.
now.
Yeah, it is interesting to go back though and think about his like, his experiences. I mean,
Yeah, true.
grows up during the Great Depression and then ends up being a POW at Dresden. It's just like I can't imagine. I can see how someone would come out thinking life is fairly meaningless after
Yeah, it's
experiencing that.
tough.
Because when you read like towards the end of Slaughterhouse Five and Dresden, the fire bombings have occurred and they're all coming out of their like underground shelters they had the POWs in and other people, Nazis and stuff. When they come out, dude, he starts explaining just the things they see. I mean, it's terrifying. Like it just and the way he describes it, it makes sense why that is his best book, dude, because it's very powerful the way he describes
Yeah,
that towards the end of the book. And this is coming on this is the tail end of a again, somewhat whimsical like book with time travel and aliens in it, throughout. And then he gets really serious and you get a close up view of the aftermath of Dresden. And it's just like, oh, this is pretty bad. But yeah, the other thing you mentioned this when you looked up a synopsis of Slaughterhouse Five. I feel like that's the quote that he's most well known for is "So it goes." He kind of just says that at the end of a lot of chapters and a lot of paragraphs, like you know,
it is what it
Johnny,
is, kind of thing.
got shot in the arm and Ned amputated, and then he died this morning. So it goes. Just anything like that, like just kind of
Yeah,
establishing that this is just life and these things happen. So again, he's known as a satirist. I don't know how you would say that properly. So I feel like he does a good job on that. I feel like satire, though, you just have to take in small doses. Like at least guys like you and I,
yeah,
and people that we know that read this kind of similar stuff we do. This just isn't what we're typically looking for, but I thought it was a nice palate cleanser. I enjoyed it. Again, I would
yeah.
recommend it if you're going to read one. If you want the more like sci-fi one, definitely Sirens of Titan. But if you want the more impactful one and his most popular one, also, I would say read Slaughterhouse Five. So if you've read any Vonnegut, drop a comment or don't like. That's for sure. Do not like this video. And I mean, any other thoughts, Andrew, about Mr. Kurt Vonnegut Jr.?
I know he's a junior. No, I
Changes
mean,
everything.
I love this book now. No, I mean, I think that the older literature, it's just, you kind of got to read it for what it is, knowing it's not modern. I mean, it's just tough for anything to stand up today. I mean, themes and like what they're trying to do, I get, but I mean, I keep kind of referencing back to Tale of Two Cities, where it was like once I figured out what actually happened, I was like, this is an insane book. But like when I was reading it, I was like, what is happening? Which I
That's
don't
different.
agree.
That's like
Yeah, that
actual
was a
like that's like actual classic.
classic. Yeah, true.
Like this is a classic
Um,
book, but that's like classical, I feel like.
yeah. So, but I mean, again, I see what he's doing, and I see how it's kind of to go from classical, where things probably like the Count of Monte Cristo and that, and like Tale of Two Cities, like just going from that kind of era to this, it is a stark difference. So I can see why it had a
I mean,
success
it's
in
a
a
hell of a
big
lot better
direction.
than Dorian Gray.
Picture of Dorian Gray was
I
terrible,
mean,
dude. I mean, yeah. So
terrible book.
yeah, I didn't think it was terrible by any means. I mean, it wasn't hard to read, so you like get
You're
through.
talking
I
about
mean,
Sirens of Titan now.
Sirens of
Yeah,
Titan, yeah. Sorry, Picture of Dorian Gray, yeah, tough read, and
very tough.
I audibled it, and it was still tough.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's Kurt Vonnegut Jr. and the books we have read by him. Again, don't interact with this at all. Just a reminder. And you should throw this picture up at the end, this cute little picture of Kurt smiling. I'll send it to you.
okay.
It's the book reviews out.